Hello everyone, we are Randy and Sherri Goss with Rosenberg Financial Group. The main thing we do as financial advisors is provide retirement planning and advice and manage our clients' investment accounts. We have offices in Macon and Warner Robins, and if you want to learn more about us, we encourage you to visit our website, retirerelax.com. Besides learning about what we do and our philosophy, you will have unrestricted access to many complimentary special reports relating to investing, retiring, scams, identity theft, as well as access to our most popular publication, My Life Book, and we just added a guide to caregiver self-care.
You can also listen to past radio broadcasts.
We normally broadcast live every Saturday and have been doing so for over 30 years, but today we're traveling, so we created a special presentation which we believe you will enjoy. The topic will be Your Money and Your Psyche. This is a great subject, and each of us will be able to relate to this information in a little bit different way. We hope that you will enjoy it as much as we have while creating it.
I've spent almost 40 years in the finance and insurance industry. For over 10 years, I worked at Consumer Credit Counseling Service, which at the time was a nonprofit dedicated to the education and financial health of consumers. While there, I served as a financial counselor, then manager, and finally the director of education, where I presented seminars on money and debt management. During my time with that organization, I learned so much about people and money and frequently saw cases where people justified the purchases they made, which ultimately created a financial disaster. It was our job to help them restructure their debt with their creditors so they could become debt-free and financially healthy. Once they were out of our program, they were on their own.
You know, I wish I knew what the recidivism rate was for the people who came in for your debt counseling.
Right? It is hard to change old habits, and it is my hope that at least some of these people learn from the mistakes they made. In hindsight, I wish our counseling program highlighted the psychological side of money management, which is what we are here to discuss today, your money and your psyche.
So, what is the psychology of money? Boiled down, it is the study of our behavior with money, which has become a hot topic in the last few years.
The number of books available on this topic has exploded. Just do a Google search and you'll find a library full of books and articles on this topic.
Right, and you must understand that your success with money isn't about your IQ or about your knowledge of the world of finance or whether you're even good at math for that matter. The psychology of money is about behavior. Everyone has a different mindset about money, and the mindset is mostly created in our formative years of life. Everyone is prone to certain behaviors over others based on the circumstances each person witnessed and experienced during their life.
Understanding your psychology as it relates to how you handle money is important. Whether you have a strong grip on your financial practices or you blow every penny you earn, there is still magic in knowing yourself. The magic is that once you become aware of your tendencies, a spender or a saver, you can harness the power of your own mind, your thoughts, and your will, and you can literally change your life.
Right, this is powerful stuff, so why don't you dig in with us?
The events of the Great Depression or COVID don't have to be a catalyst to make you a spender or a saver, but for lack of a better way to say this is that you may have been born on the wrong side of the tracks. And this has nothing to do with race or heritage. It simply could be the result of the choices that were made before you were born. Whether you were born on the wrong side of the tracks or not does not prevent you from making choices today that can positively impact the rest of your life and your children's lives and on down the line. If you're a spender, you make decisions about money that make sense to you at the time. The decision to spend the money is justified in your mind to keep you from feeling bad about the decision you've made. You may not even have spent the money yet, but you're telling yourself that you deserve a treat, or you worked hard and deserve something nice. All too often, people justify themselves into debt.
That's right. Too often we can be lulled into believing that you don't need to save because you have a good job that will continue to provide the money to support the lifestyle to which you've become accustomed. But I will tell you that we've all fallen into the trap one time or another. This is nothing to be ashamed of, but it is something that requires your attention and dedication to fix and then maintain.
Falling into the trap is easy. It's the trap that says the money will always be there. We incrementally add things to our spending plan until one day you realize that the credit cards are no longer manageable and that you're living paycheck to paycheck. We justify adding a cell phone plan, adding cable TV and pay-per-view channels. We justify eating out too much, or even worse, always wanting to pick up the tab.
That's right. All too often, our wants grow way beyond our basic needs. Take TV as an example, and don't get me wrong. I love to watch a good movie or a series, but to what extent am I willing to sacrifice my future for the instant gratification of 200 channels on demand? Did you know that according to cordcutternews.com that the average American spends over $2,600 per year on cable television? You know the Bruce Springsteen song that famously says, "There's 57 channels and nothing on." In reality, for most traditional cable customers, there's nearly 200 channels and very few things on.
Right. Cable TV is just one example. In my opinion, buying lottery tickets falls into the ultimate waste of money category, but I imagine that everyone has their vices, right?
You're right, but here's some amazing lottery statistics for you. In the year 2021, Georgians spent a staggering $5.8 billion on lottery tickets, and since Georgia has a population of 10.8 million, that means on average that every man, woman, and child spent $537 on lottery tickets. There are a lot of people who do not buy lottery tickets, so I imagine the average amount spent on tickets by the ever-faithful people who do buy the lottery tickets, that average is much higher. Think about this. The numbers I just gave you are just from Georgia. Astounding. And Motley Fool reported in June of 2019 that the U.S. spending on lottery tickets was in excess of $71 billion. Even before the lottery came to Georgia, I had friends who would travel to Las Vegas to gamble. I was always amazed at the stories they told me upon their return. Without fail, I would hear fantastic stories of how much money they had won. Very seldom did I ever hear that they had a good time but lost everything that they had taken with them to the casinos. It does not take a financial genius to understand that a casino is there to make money. The odds are in their favor. Yes, you can have a good time gambling, and I have had a blast at the craps tables in the past, but I have no illusions that the casino or the house is there to help me make money, because they make money when I lose. Lottery tickets are the same. I had an employee who loved to play the lottery, and he was always telling me and others about how often he won, whether it was $1, $100, or $1,000. He just couldn't wait to tell you about his winnings. Strangely, though, he was always broke and looking to get an advance on his pay. You will find that gamblers will always tell you about their winnings, but never tell you about how much money they had to spend to get that one win. I would love to see the return on investment for people who spend that $537 on lottery tickets each year. Like the casinos, the house is designed to win.
So who buys lottery tickets? According to a survey by Bankrate, 28% of Americans who earn less than $30,000 per year play the lottery. That's not to say that higher wage earners don't play the lottery, they just don't spend nearly as much. Households with incomes of $75,000 and above spend on average $105 annually, a quarter of what low-wage earners spend. But why do low-wage earners continue to pour money into the lottery where the chances of winning are obscenely low? Kate Gibson, a CBS reporter, stated that an individual stands a better chance of getting struck by an asteroid or killed by a shark than winning the Mammoth Powerball.
The idea of striking it rich in the lottery is enticing. I've even been drawn to the giant Powerball drawings in the past. There's no doubt a win in the lottery could be life-changing, and for some the idea of hitting a big payoff may be the closest they ever come to becoming a millionaire. And here's one last statistic about the lottery. According to LotteryPros.com, only 37% of winners invest the money to continue receiving dividends. Winning the lottery could be like the ultimate dream, a chance of a lifetime, a more fulfilled and luxurious life. Well, it could be, but some stats report bankruptcy rates as high as 70% among lottery winners. It appears these winners' psyche about money never changed.
The fact is that bad financial behavior will not improve once you're rich. In many cases, it exacerbates the bad financial choices and habits. It's easy to think $1 million will last forever, especially if you have never had anywhere near that amount of money at your disposal. Most of the instantly wealthy do not have the financial education or the habits to effectively manage the money, and they don't seek professional advice. If you or someone you know suddenly becomes wealthy, I encourage you to go to our website, retirerelax.com, and download the special report titled For the Instantly Wealthy. This report provides great information about how to approach wealth, especially new wealth.
I was taught the value of a dollar at a young age. At age 12, I started working for my dad when I was not in school. He had a thriving mobile home business where he sold and set up mobile homes and made them, quote, move-in ready. One of my duties was to carry concrete cinder blocks from the truck to the home site. Depending on the slope of the land and the height of the trailer, whether it was a single wide or a double wide, I could carry literally hundreds of blocks in a day. This was not fun work, and I was short and not in great shape. And it was usually hot because my time to work with him was during summer breaks from school. He paid me a whopping 50 cents an hour and brought lunch for us every day. Spam sandwiches, yum. The money I earned was used to help me purchase my school clothes. My mom and dad bought the basics, and if I wanted something nicer than what my parents would have normally purchased for me, then I was required to use my own money to make up the difference. Well, the next school year I wanted better blue jeans, so I decided to pay the difference. I liked it up to the point that I ran out of money and learned another good life lessons that was, my choice, my expense. And at that time, I thought dear old mom and dad were just mean, but the lesson I learned from that experience has stayed with me to this day.
I had the very same upbringing, and I still shop clearance racks.
Right, and we were not a wealthy family, but we were hardworking, and my parents used the money they made wisely. They taught me that much. What they did not teach me was the value of long-term savings and investing. I had to learn that on my own, and I've learned a lot of it the hard way. Long before I learned about the psychology of money, I understood that others who were making about the same amount of money I was seemed to be doing much better than I was financially. So if you run into a situation like this, take it as a sign. A little introspection and reaching out to an expert are great ways to better your understanding of your inner money psyche.
So let's talk about the history of money and mankind. The invention of money occurred before the beginning of written history. The store of value could have been anything that someone else desired. For example, a chicken or a cow could have been exchanged for something the purchaser wanted. All they had to do was find someone willing to take a chicken or a cow in exchange for the good or service they wanted. This was more of a bartering system than anything else. As time marched on, the formal system of money we know today matured into a fiat system where we exchange paper currency for goods and services. Now we have a store of value that can be spent or stored away for use at another time. Chickens and cows get old and die, but your country's money usually maintains a value that is easily stored and easily transferred in exchange for goods and services. Plus, today's money is much easier to transport.
You may not know the entire history of how our monetary system came to be, but you are very aware of the impact of money. Today's discussion is about money at the user level. You, me, and everyone else you know needs money to exist. Money is the grease that keeps the wheels turning on the global economic engine. But let's not discuss global money supplies. Let's take a look at how each of you interact with money. Money alone is straightforward. I have $100. I want to buy an item which you are selling for $100. Done deal. It's that simple, right? Wrong.
I would like to point out one thing. It seems that since money has been around for a very long time, you would think that this would be an issue that has all the bugs worked out, but you would be wrong. The bugs in the system are you and me. It is our psyche, our soul, our mind, our spirit. It's the drive to use money to satisfy our wants and desires.
Ask yourself this. If you were given $10,000 with no tax implications, no limits, no conditions on what you could do with it, what would you do with it? What was your first thought? Would you put it in the bank and save it for a rainy day? Would you pay off your credit cards, pay down the principal on your home, use it as a down payment on a new car, buy a new watch, clothes, or take a vacation? The options of what you could do with that money is virtually limitless. You could buy an I-bond that pays 9% right now. See how you allocate the money you receive, whether it is given to you as in the $10,000, inherited, or you work for it, places you in one of two categories, a saver or a spender. Even these two categories are not as clear as you would imagine. They're not absolutes. There's always wiggle room, but this raises a question. How did you become one or the other? Are you locked into being one or the other? Well, that's up to you and how satisfied you are with either one of these two titles.
Your background plays a big role. How you relate to money has to do with the environment you were raised in as a child. The era you grew up in also has a lot to do with how you view money. Take the Great Depression, which began after a major fall in stock prices in the United States. The economic contagion began around September 4th, 1929, and was followed by the Black Tuesday stock market crash on October 29th, 1929. Our grandparents had front row seats to the devastation that occurred. The crash was felt around the world and impacted countries to varying degrees. Basically, this was the worst economic downturn in the history of the industrialized world, wiping out millions of investors and ultimately leaving some 15 million Americans unemployed, while nearly half of the country's banks failed.
Yeah, that was a horrible time. In 1933, there were just 125 million U.S. citizens, so basically 12% of the population was unemployed, and unemployment insurance was not started until 1935 as part of the Social Security Act, and food stamps were not issued until 1939. There was no Small Business Administration providing business with grants or loans to keep employees employed or businesses afloat. There were no safety nets. This was a particularly bleak time in the United States. Times such as the Great Depression created a thrift mindset for most Americans who lived through it, and it was evident in how they spent money as they moved forward in their life.
My dad used to tell me when I was a child what it was like to live during the Depression. They lived mostly off of the garden, milk from a cow, a plum tree, and government surplus canned soup. For the rest of his life, he could not even look at a plum. Despite the stories, it's hard to relate to that experience.
Yeah, our parents were children during the Depression, forever altered by what they witnessed and seeing what their parents had to do to survive. Go back and look at the pictures from that era and you can better understand. Those young eyes took everything in, and that helped set their perspective on money. It helped permanently alter their psyche. So let's move forward in time to a period of great growth in the stock market, the S&P 500 specifically. Beginning in January 2010 through the beginning of 2022, the S&P gained over 313%.
If you were an investor who had never experienced an event like the Great Depression, the housing crash of 2008, or COVID, you might believe that money was simply something that would always be there. Spending sprees may be second nature.
Right, and you could live paycheck to paycheck and possibly feel footloose and fancy-free, as my mom would like to say. However, data and personal experience shows that living paycheck to paycheck is anything but free.
The adage, history repeats itself, applies here, and people who lived through the Great Depression had a whole different perspective on money than people who had lived through the COVID pandemic.
See, during COVID, Uncle Sam provided over $9 trillion in pandemic stimulus money, according to the New York Times. $1.8 trillion was paid to individuals and families. Of that, nearly $700 billion was paid in unemployment, including an extra $600 per week from March to July 2020. Businesses received $1.7 trillion, $745 billion was paid to state and local aid programs, and the remaining billions went to airlines and the healthcare system.
The government safety nets, while inflating the national debt, also provided a safety net for American citizens. According to a 2021 report by Business Insider, Americans saved a record amount of money. Over $1.6 trillion was squirreled away during the pandemic. The savings rate reflects a shift in people's psyche or the fact that they were scared to leave their homes.
Right, and worldwide, consumers saved an extra $2.9 trillion, which means that the American savings rate during the pandemic accounts for slightly more than half of the global total. That is a staggering amount of money. The amount of money saved equals the GDP of South Korea.
The pandemic is over and the stimulus checks have stopped. Now American incomes have fallen below pre-pandemic levels and Americans are saving less, according to an MSN report. The financial buffer that protected Americans from inflation throughout much of 2021 is fading, and the fastest price growth, aka inflation, in 4 decades has slammed American wallets for months, and those savings accounts are beginning to wear thin.
How will the pandemic and post-pandemic inflation affect the psyche of Americans? Will we see a discernible shift in the savings mindset? Time will tell. It will be interesting to see if the perspective on money changes at all with the new government programs that continue to provide cash to Americans during the pandemic.
Many times, the amount the government was handing out exceeded the person's pre-pandemic monthly pay. So my gut says no, we did not learn due to the new financial habits of our government as they relate to individuals. How could you learn that you needed to save more for a rainy day if someone else is going to keep giving you money?
Right. So it's time for a change. In business, there are times when you have the opportunity to reshape your business processes, the product itself, or how the business interacts with its clients. Look at Facebook shifting to Meta, oil companies shifting to solar, or the auto industry shifting to electric vehicles. And these are just a few examples of companies who reacted to external data and responded accordingly to remain relevant.
We each have, on occasions, times when we need to shift our personal lives to better reflect how we want our future lives to be. If you find yourself in a bad position, it could be just the opportunity that you need to change your future.
Yep. That bad position could be the result of a catastrophic event or overspending and running up unsustainable debt that causes you to have nothing left from your paycheck after you pay the bills. Even worse, if you can't pay all your bills and the collectors are calling you every day or the power has been turned off to your home. If you need a reset, I encourage you to work to understand how you came to be in the position you are today. It's okay to remember the past, especially if you're trying to move forward on a better path. Failing to remember the historic you can lead to continued bad habits.
The previous stories demonstrate that bad financial habits can put a fortune in peril. Many mistakes can be avoided by following simple rules. A financial slip, trip, or fall does not necessarily mean the end of the road, but you need to lay the groundwork early in your years to be prepared to face the many hazards we face throughout life, even financial ones. When it comes to poor money choices, we don't have to be born on the wrong side of the tracks. I know plenty of people who make a lot of money, born with a proverbial silver spoon in their mouths, and that they are living on the razor's edge of liquidity. They are one paycheck away from disaster. There are a few reasons for this. Living to impress others, keeping up with expectations, ignorance or financial illiteracy, no long-term goals, no habit of saving, failing to make finances a priority, procrastination, or fear and incorrect beliefs about money.
And today, pressures don't just come from the neighbors and co-workers. You heard of keeping up with the Smiths and the Joneses? Today's pressures come from all over the place. You can't get away from it. You go to your favorite social media site and everyone posts stories and pictures that makes it look like they're living a fairy tale life. Who wouldn't think? That could be me. I just need a new car, a bigger house, new furniture, new clothes, and so on, so that you can post pictures that make you look like you are also living a storied life. I'm glad people are having a good time and sharing their happiness. My only hope is that others just don't try to emulate what they perceive. Oftentimes what they see is just window dressing. We have a particular relative who posts great pictures on social media, very photogenic, but I know that they spend way too much just to get these great pictures.
Many people feel stuck in their current state of life, unable to get ahead. If you feel like you can't get ahead in your job, or maybe you don't have a job, it is in your control to at least investigate the free opportunities offered by the state of Georgia. Many of these careers offer high-paying jobs such as HVAC, welding, diesel engine repair, or a semi-truck driver. Will these career fields make you a millionaire? Not overnight, no, but they can be a catalyst that moves the needle in the right direction.
Today, right here in Georgia, there are 17 free training programs that are funded by the Georgia Lottery and the Hope Career Grant and the Technical College System of Georgia. If you want to know more about these free programs, visit the Technical College System of Georgia's website. That site is tcsgu.edu. Here's something strange, at least to us. We often talk to servers at the various restaurants that we visit. We ask them what their life goals are, especially if they're young. Occasionally, we learn about programs a person is about to graduate from.
On one occasion, we met a nice young man who was a mere month away from achieving his underwater welding certification. Another who was well on his way to becoming an airline pilot. These people were working part-time while going to school to earn a skill to be off to the next level. We have many stories like this, and they are awesome to hear. On the other hand, we hear stories of despair. People often do not understand the resources available to assist them in getting to the proverbial other side of the track.
Right. We recently had lunch at La Prairie at River Crossing Mall, and the manager stopped to talk with us. She said she keeps telling the servers, this is not a career. This is just a job you're going to do right now to help you get to the next place in life, the next level. We have literally written instructions on how to find out more about the free programs that we previously discussed, only to see these people later to learn that they have not even looked up the programs on the web. Yet they have a phone in their back pocket that has more computing power than the computers used to put the first man on the moon.
If you are listening to this show today, please do not sit passively by and take no action to better yourself and have a brighter future. Be proactive, create your own life story, and don't let someone else convince you that you have already maximized your potential just because they have not. Put naysayers on notice that you are changing your psyche and moving on up and creating your own success story. So how do you create your own success story? First, be a lifelong learner. You don't need to read a financial textbook to understand how to create a budget or track your spending, but some people convince themselves that they could never understand how to better themselves financially. Go to our website, retirerelax.com, and print the special report, Can I Afford to Retire? Go through it and fill it out.
I have a good friend who's smart. Actually, he's very smart and has a list of accolades to prove it. His path took him in career fields that literally had nothing to do with each other. Each time he made a switch, he became really good at the new job. The jobs he held were in law enforcement. He was a professional wrestler, a professional fisherman, complete with his own TV time slot, a cameraman for NASCAR, and now he oversees security for a major packing company in Atlanta. During all of this, he created a consumer device, obtained a U.S. patent for it, and ultimately sold the rights. However, when it comes to finances, he believes that he could never understand how to better manage his own money. He believes he can never retire. But here's the interesting thing. He's a whiz with social media accounts and reads a lot on the subjects that he likes, but he does not take the time to research issues that he's deficient in, such as his own 401k or investments.
Most everyone has a smartphone or access to the internet, whether at home or at a public library. The information at our disposal today is staggering in the scope and volume. The iPhone 6 had more computing power than Apollo 11, 100,000 times more computing power according to the Mac Observer. Now we are up to the iPhone 13, which is even more powerful and soon to have 5G across the nation. So there's really no excuse for not getting some basic information to help you get to the next level.
Okay, here's another idea to help you craft your own success story. Spend less than you earn. Said differently, save. If you earn more but increase your spending by that same amount, you will never grow your wealth. Instead of blowing everything on a spending spree, plan to save a portion of your income. The faster you want to grow your wealth, the more you will need to save. The Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, said in a speech to college students that the biggest mistake is not learning the habit of saving properly. He also noted that most behavior is habitual, and that the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. So, create strong savings habits.
Okay, we're at the halftime show mark, and so you've been listening to Randy and Sherri Goss with Rosenberg Financial Group. We have offices in Macon and Warner Robins. Today's broadcast is a pre-recorded show, so you will not be able to call in. If you'd like to learn more about us and what we do as financial advisors, I encourage you to call our office at 478-922-8100 or check out our website, retirerelax.com. While there, you can check out our special reports section. We have some great reports about you, money, cybersecurity, caregiver health, and the ever-popular Life Book, and more. And they are all free, and we do not track you.
Okay, so let's talk about plans. When you're faced with adversity, create a plan. One thing I learned during my Air Force career is that plans are good until the first shots are fired. We are always plan for the worst, but expect the best. And that's not a bad way to reflect on your financial planning. Saving too much for your retirement is okay. I would rather have saved more than I need than be wishing I had saved more as I start spending down my retirement account. As we age, we inevitably have more expenses. Doctor visits, eyeglasses, hearing aids, retrofitting your home to accommodate medical devices such as a wheelchair or a walker. You can just never tell when you're going to need a little more money for the unexpected.
Having a plan, regardless of how much money you have, is a good idea. I've heard the saying my entire life that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But how true is this?
Well, Kenny Rogers in his famous song, The Gambler, has a great line. You've got to know when to hold 'em and you got to know when to fold 'em. Unfortunately, many did not get the memo on when to stop spending. There are countless stories of people who seemingly had more money than they would ever need. Unfortunately, making money does not equally apply to keeping money. Let's start with George Foreman. I love Big George. He was a two-time heavyweight world champion, and I love to watch him box. His overall attitude, even when he was on hard times, he maintained composure and a great smile. Big George was an Olympic gold medalist, and he defended his title twice, even knocking out Joe Frazier before losing to Muhammad Ali in the iconic Rumble in the Jungle in 1974. And he had a boxing record of 76 wins, 68 by knockout, and just 5 losses. During his boxing career, he earned about $5 million, which is about $40 million in today's dollars. After 10 years, he had spent it all on his extravagant lifestyle as he had no plan and did not know how to properly invest according to capitalism.com.
Remember John Daly, a golfing maverick, achieved rapid stardom and rang up multiple wins with earnings in excess of $10 million. Unfortunately, John admits that his gambling losses between 1991 and 2007 came in around $90 million.
Ouch! Chris Tucker was at one point the highest paid actor in the world, but financial struggles quickly took away the money he made from the Rush Hour franchise. Kurt Schilling, a Major League superstar, struck out financially. His Major League Baseball earnings exceeded $144 million, but again, poor financial choices and investments were his demise. He applied for bankruptcy in 2012.
This is just the tip of the iceberg. There are literally thousands of cases because it is not as uncommon as you may think that people believe they are investing with the best information and act without even consulting an expert before they invest their life savings in what sounds like a good idea, usually presented by someone who is really good at presenting and selling. Most of the time, when these good ideas go bust, people wonder, why me, without ever reconsidering that they may need to adjust their psyche's attitude toward money. And there are plenty of inspiring stories about people who have done the right thing with money.
Right. So let's go back to Big George for a minute. I'm sure you've heard the line that says, you can't keep a good man down. Well, George Foreman is one of those men. After his bankruptcy, he could have retreated into the shadows, licking his wounds and given up. Instead, George redefined himself as a person and a spender. He learned from his lessons, and we can all do the same, whether it is with money or how we behave. The George Foreman grill is now a household name. Whether you own one or not, I'm sure you've heard of it. George patented the grill and has made a fortune selling them. George could have gone back to his old spending habits, but he didn't. After creating and selling the patented George Foreman grills, he has earned and maintained his newfound wealth. Today, Big George's estimated net worth is in excess of $300 million, according to CelebrityNetWorth.com. Others believe the money train will just keep chugging along until one day it doesn't, without ever considering that their own habits were the cause of their demise.
Now ask yourself and be honest, how many months of emergency savings do you have set aside for the inevitable rainy day? The day your car breaks down and you're faced with a high repair bill. The day your office decides you are no longer needed. The day you need dental or other medical treatment. These days occur more often than you think to people just like you. If you don't have and maintain an emergency fund, you could be placing yourself in a poor financial position, which can cause debilitating stress in your life. The silver lining here is that this is something you can change.
Fox Business reported that more than 3/4 of Americans say they had one financial regret since the beginning of the pandemic, and that was not putting enough into savings. 22% of adults regretted not saving enough for emergency expenses compared to 15% just 2 years ago, and the most in the 5-year history of the poll. And this was found to be most common among millennials and Gen Xers.
The silver lining here is that this is something you can change. Changing savings habits is a change to your money psyche. Regardless of your income, you should be able to alter some of your wants, at least until you have built the emergency savings account up to a realistic level. When you make inroads to improving your savings and how you spend, it can be addictive. You want to see what else you can achieve.
Well, do you think luck has anything to do with how you manage money?
It could, but not always. We were lucky. We had hardworking parents who instilled strong work ethics that have endured. Yes, I know how to work hard, but is working hard enough? No, I know plenty of hardworking people who are broke. Knowing how to save is the answer.
Well, one way to make saving a habit is to simply automate it. It's advice you've probably heard 1,000 times, but it doesn't make it any less relevant. Set up automatic transfers directly from your paycheck soon after you get paid into your savings and retirement accounts at regular intervals. Warren Buffett says, do not save what's left after spending, spend what's left after savings. Essentially, save first and foremost, and once you've socked away as much as possible, then you can allow yourself to spend some money.
If you're not saving now, this could be the perfect wake-up call you need. Once you understand your needs in retirement, you should be able to adjust the course you're on to make huge inroads in your savings rate, because now the ball will be in your court.
Right. Now here's a personal story of savings and choices. When I was a small boy around my 9th birthday, my father took me to the local bank and opened a passbook savings account. Many of you might remember those. At that time, I received a small book, basically a tiny ledger that I could keep track of my account balance. I have good memories of depositing money and watching the pennies deposited grow into dollars. I saved and I spent, and this went on for a few years. At one point, I remember being so proud to have reached $50, which adjusted for inflation would just be $381. I was rich. A few years later, my brother and I got off the bus, and as usual, we raced to see who could get to the house first. He was 2 years older than me and could run a little faster. Well, actually a lot faster than I could. Well, one day, he was feeling more ornery than normal and locked me out of the house. There he stood behind the sliding glass door taunting me. I ultimately kicked the door in frustration and it shattered. And I just stood there like a statue, terrified. And the worst words an 11-year-old kid can hear is, "Wait till your dad gets home." I heard this from my brother, my sister, and then my mom when she got home. Well, Dad finally arrived about 4 hours later, and I expected to get the whipping of my life. I got worse. My dad heard my brother's side of the story and then mine. He did the unthinkable. He told both of us to bring our passbooks to him. He confiscated our entire life savings, and then he proceeded to have the door repaired. I still remember him laying the bill on the table and making me and my brother look at it. The bill was $88. That's $677 in today's money. At this point, he informed us that we each had to pay 50% of the bill. I was devastated. But I did learn a good lesson besides glass is fragile. The lesson I learned was that I am responsible for my own actions.
We believe that parents should hold their kids financially accountable. How else can you convey to your children that they are responsible for their own actions? Often we see parents bail their children out of situations with no recourse, and many times the children are grown adults who just have never learned good financial habits. Call me naive or heartless, but if the only lesson that is learned is that someone else will pay the price for your bad decisions, then there is no motivation to change behavior.
Right, and how is this story relevant to the psychology of money? It is exactly that you and I are independently responsible for our own actions about money. If you are barely making ends meet, I recommend you create a budget, a detailed budget where you track every penny you spend for at least 30 days, if not longer.
Remember, there are some expenses that will not need to be paid each month, say car insurance. If you have those expenses, simply prorate them for 1 month and add them to your total, or even better, set up automatic monthly savings deposits to cover them. Go to our website, retirerelax.com, and download the free special report, Can I Afford to Retire, and use a spending tracker in the back if you would like.
And here's another chapter in creating your success story, and that is knowing the game you're playing. You will find plenty of people out there who will tell you how to invest your money. I encourage you to seek counsel from experts. Find a certified financial planner who is required by law to provide investment advice that is in your best interest. Be upfront with the advisor about what your current financial position looks like and what you want your future financial position to look like. This person should be able to provide honest feedback that will help you on your path to financial independence. This person could be your trusted agent, a person that you call for advice. They could be your sounding board and a financial mentor.
Speaking of mentors, there are plenty of hardworking people out there who would make a great financial coach. People who understand the value of a dollar and the true cost of not saving for the future. This is not a person who looks over your shoulder every day to be sure you're not buying expensive coffee. This is a person that you can simply ask questions before you make a big financial decision. Listen closely, though. Not everyone is a suitable mentor, so choose wisely.
Right. I knew a guy when I was in real estate that dressed to the nines every day. He was sharp as a tack when he left home. He would say, "Dress as you aspire to be." Now that's a great saying. Too bad he was broke as a church mouse. It looked like he might know a thing or two about finances, but it was just an illusion.
Here's another well-known example. Many looked up to Bernie Madoff. He was a financial whiz, former chairman of the NASDAQ stock exchange, and he advanced the proliferation of electronic trading platforms. At one point, Bernie was worth about $65 billion and was looked up to by many, especially ones who were making great returns on their investments. Unfortunately, he is now the symbol of American greed and corruption.
And you need to be aware of mass media. The mass media we are referring to are the people telling you on network television about where to invest your money. Too often we see network analysts sensationalizing a stock or a fund that they believe will be perfect for you. Most of the time, these people make their money by hawking their newsletters and subscription-based programs. They're trying to sell you something. And remember one thing, they don't know you. They do not understand your financial position, your risk tolerance, your income, or your ability to buy what they are advising you to buy. See, a person with poor financial habits cultivated throughout their life now believes they can make a few quick moves with stocks or other investments to make up for years of poor savings and investment habits. And the mass media only makes this problem worse.
Understanding risk. Some investments are riskier than others. When putting money into a high-risk investment, it shouldn't be more than you can afford to lose because losing it is a very real possibility. Next, diversify. You know the saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Risking it all in one investment is an unwise move. Spread your investments, spread the risk.
I have a close relative who worked for WorldCom for over 10 years. Each pay period, he opted to place 100% of his monthly investment into the company stock. The nest egg for his family was invested in one stock. That is almost investment rule number one. not to put all your eggs in one basket. WorldCom senior management had cooked the books, which resulted in one of the largest accounting scandals and one of the largest bankruptcies in U.S. history. Unfortunately for his family, they also went bankrupt and had to start over.
Save first, then spend. Automate your savings and investments with pre-tax dollars. If you're offered a 401k where you work, take advantage of it. If they're offering a matching contribution, do it. That is free money.
Free money. That's nothing better. Wrapping it up, why the psychology of money matters. I've come to value self-awareness as a tool. We need to learn about the way our mind works if we want to grow, whether we're talking about money or life in general. Knowing yourself is a huge factor in creating meaningful change. For years now, Dave Ramsey has said that personal finance is 20% head knowledge and 80% behavior. That's why his proven plan for getting out of debt relies on changing your behavior instead of throwing a bunch of numbers and formulas at you.
So back to our first question. Are you a spender or a saver? Does money burn a hole in your pocket? Do you actively seek ways to spend the money, whether it is on new shoes, clothes, tools, or automobiles? This list could go on forever if you are an active spender. Now, if you are a saver, your instincts are not to spend. You are more likely to tuck that money away. That does not mean you're not going to spend it. It just means you are more discerning on what you do with the money and when.
I, like most people, have hobbies. My hobbies involve tools, whether they are for automobiles or for my wood shop. When I see tools, I always pause just to take a look. There are times when I feel like a tool addict, but I've learned to temper my lust for the new shiny tools.
We are active readers, so just about every week there's a new Amazon package arriving at the office with a new book. It's okay to shop and buy yourself stuff, just don't do it at the expense of your financial well-being.
Right, Sherri, now thanks to technology, my web browser provides me with the deal of the day, the latest specials from one of the vendors I have previously purchased from. This is good, right? No, it is not. These advertisements are simple levers to get you to whip out the plastic and buy whatever it is they are selling. Sellers do not care about you. They do not care about your retirement plans, your emergency savings, or lack of one. They don't care about whether your credit card is stretched to the breaking point or not. They don't care about anything but getting you to purchase their stuff. They just want your money.
So if you're a spender, you can always find creative ways to spend money. Do you have clothes in your closet that still have tags on them? Do you have tools that you once purchased and were seldom, if ever, used?
I personally have over 200 drill bits of all shapes and sizes. I did not buy them. They were purchased by my grandfather decades ago and eventually given to me, so it appears I inherited my weakness for shiny tools. See, being a spender is nothing new. Throughout time, we have always looked to trade our chickens and our cows for something else. It is up to you to make the change if you want to achieve financial freedom. You have the most profound information gathering system known to man, and it sits right between your ears, your brain. Feed it the information it needs to help you create strong financial habits. Habits that can elevate you to the next level. Habits that transcend the size of the tracks that you were born on.
Another way you can create your own story is by completing the pages of My Life book, which is also available in the special reports section of our website. This presentation is my most popular program, so I thought we'd share a taste of this program with you today. The following is why I wrote this book. In our culture, the only thing we avoid talking about more than death is money. I've heard countless stories from clients about what happened when one of their parents died. In many cases, no pre-planning had been done, so the client was left to take care of everything, from calling family and friends, arranging the funeral, and selecting the casket. The next job they had to take on was sorting through the household finances, locating documents, tracking down insurance policies and filing claims, getting into the safe deposit box, and settling the estate. Not only can these experiences be traumatic and emotionally draining, but family members usually have to place their own lives on hold, sometimes for over a year, just to complete the process. And what if the executor of the estate is also in charge of distributing the property? And what if there are disagreements as to who should get what? I have seen family relationships destroyed by this experience. None of the parents of these adult children did this to their children intentionally. It just happened. I want your family to avoid these problems, which is why I have created My Life book. Here's what can happen if you don't work through these issues in advance. Your wishes won't be carried out because nobody will know what you want. Benefits will be lost because nobody will know what you're eligible to receive. Your family will fight over who does what and who gets what. Everything you wanted to have happen will not happen. The solution: begin the process of creating a life book. The purpose of creating a life book is to help you organize your personal information, desires, and wishes in a way that is most useful to your loved ones. Each section contains case stories, explanations, and examples of why that particular segment is important. Thank you for taking the time to do this for your family. They will appreciate it. You can print the pages and insert them into a binder, and you can also add copies of account statements and other important documents that you think your heirs need to access. So if I came to your church, your club, or your workplace, this is what I would share with your group, and this is the basic outline. I wrote this book in 2007 because children of aging parents and aging parents with children struggle with how to start this financial conversation. Reason it's important? We have a 100% death rate in this country. So here are the sections that I would talk about. One is personal. You need a safe, secure place to store your important documents, like a safe deposit box or a fireproof safe. Someone else needs to have access in case of an emergency. This is where you can store your DD-214, deeds, titles, insurance policy information, burial plans, etc. If you carry credit cards, make a copy of them and add this to the safe. You can also copy everything to a flash drive. Back in 2018, we had a terrible hurricane, and when you turned on the news, you saw people walking along the highway with a cell phone and a pet. That gave me the idea of scanning everything and putting it on a flash drive. It doesn't cost much, and you'll always have the information with you because you can attach it to your keychain. I was presenting this information to a group years ago, and when I got to this place, a woman in the audience popped up and said, "Listen to what happened to me." She had been asking her husband to have a will made because everything was in his name, and he had 2 adult sons from a previous marriage. He just kept refusing to get it done. Well, one day he informs her that it's done and it's on the computer, but she never checked it. He passed unexpectedly a year later, and they download the will, and it was never signed or notarized, so everything passed by Georgia law. So she got 1/3 of the house, and the sons got the other 2/3. She got 1/3 of the money, and the other sons got the 2/3. To create an inexpensive will, go to LegalZoom.com or Nolo.com and get it done. Make sure your will is current and accurate if you already have one. Go to caringinfo.org to print out your Georgia Advance Directive, which is free. Complete them and have them witnessed and notarized. This is about end-of-life care. Understand when to use a power of attorney and a durable power of attorney. And if your power of attorney is dated before July 1st, 2017, please give a copy to your bank, financial advisor, etc. to make sure they will still accept it. The Georgia Assembly made changes to the power of attorney law in 2017 to help stop identity theft and elder abuse. You can complete and download a free power of attorney by going to https://law.emory.edu, as in the university. Financial. Review your beneficiary designations on your life insurance policies, annuities, and retirement accounts. Use pay-on-death forms to add beneficiaries to bank accounts and transfer on-death forms for retail brokerage accounts, which are non-retirement accounts. Make a list of all accounts, account numbers, and contact information, and put this in your safe or your life book. I spent 10 years in the group insurance business a long time ago and wrote a lot of life insurance and found it interesting that unmarried men make their mom their beneficiary most of the time. The problem? You get married and you don't change it. Insurance agents don't revisit these policies to ensure the beneficiary is correct. That is on you. Encourage your employees during open enrollment and your coworkers to verify that their beneficiaries are correct. IRAs inherited by non-spouse beneficiaries also now fall under a 10-year rule, which means that if you inherit as a non-spouse, you inherit an IRA, you will have to spend down the money in 10 years. So these are things you need to understand so that you can make a plan. Number 4 is property. Review the titling of all property and understand how it will transfer upon your death. I have seen widows who assumed they would inherit 100% of the property and did not. Understand how property will pass if there is no will. I was speaking to a grief support group a few months ago, And 2 people in the room said that when their spouse died, they learned that the property deed had been made out as tenants in common instead of joint tenant with right of survivorship. Tenants in common means that each can assign their own beneficiaries in their will, and their share of the property would go to their beneficiary, not their spouse. Fortunately, these 2 people had wills, and so the will made the house go to the spouse, which is how you want it. 5, long-term care. Talk with your family about long-term care and research your options. Most of us will need care at some point, so it is helpful to have already had this conversation. You may want to consider purchasing long-term care insurance, especially if it is available through your job. If you are a veteran, you may be eligible for aid and attendance benefits. Talk with your local VA field service representative. There are income and assets limits, and if you work on the base, the best product around is available to you. Number 6 is burial and cremation. Pre-plan your burial or cremation with a funeral home and have these instructions readily available. Do not put them in a safe deposit box. Georgia is a trust state, so prepaying is safe. This information all goes into the safe or your life book. My father-in-law passed 6 years ago, and his instructions were in a safe deposit box. He passed on a Friday evening, and the bank was not open Saturday morning. We spent 3 hours at the funeral home that Saturday doing everything from writing the obituary to picking out a casket. It is brutal. The more stress you can take off the ones you love, the better. In Warner Robins, McCullough Funeral has a really good deal. If you want direct cremation and a cardboard box, you can lock in the price now forever for $2,000. The money goes into an annuity that keeps up with inflation, and that is on my personal to-do list. At the very least, write out what you want done and let your executor know. So you can print free pages from My Life book on our website, retirerelax.com. You just click on the Special Report tab, then Life Book. Thank you so much for listening today, and I hope this information was helpful to you.
We hope that you've enjoyed this special presentation on the psychology of money and you.
So you've been listening to Sherri and Randy Goss with Rosenberg Financial Group. If you'd like to schedule a complimentary consultation, please call our office to set an appointment. The number is 478-922-8100. Please check out the special reports section of our website at retirerelax.com, and you can also sign up to get our feeds weekly. We look forward to being back with you live next weekend, and thanks for listening.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Incorporated. Member FINRA SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Incorporated is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Incorporated.